all the deals were getting done right away, which meant that players, Joe, are you listening?
Yeah, I just have something in my eye right now.
Okay.
And it hurts so bad.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go take it out if that's all right.
Okay, I was literally explaining this to you, but
Oh, really?
yeah, no.
I've been just sitting here with something in my eye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Bill Belichick's favorite football podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, Bill Belichick. He likes us so much, he actually just signed us to a 3-year, $34 million contract.
With the
Patriots. He's the coach of the Patriots. Joined once again by my football-loving, football-knowing producer, illustrious producer, Joe Thiessen. How's it going, Joe?
Better now.
Better now that we have this new contract.
Yeah.
Free agency. Wow. What a time it was. We're going to get into the chaos that was free agency, the illegal tampering period, the actual beginning of the new league year.
I would like you to actually explain to me exactly what this legal tampering.
Okay, I know I'm going to do that.
Illegal tampering or illegal?
No, it's
tampering?
legal tampering, and I'm going to get all into that. We're going to talk every single signing. We're going to talk some under the radar signings that I enjoyed. We're going to talk some teams that maybe frustrated me. Who knows? I might even raise my voice today. Be prepared. Just a loaded show. Super excited. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But before we start doing that, obviously, we can't just jump straight into football. Then what would you do, Joe?
That would be inhumane.
That would be inhumane. Yeah, Joe. I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about here at the beginning of the podcast. I'm going to put you on the spot. I have nothing. I'm coming in with nothing.
So you were talking to me a lot today about how much you hated the fact that I like Japanese animation.
Okay.
And movies like that. So I think we should talk about that a little bit. Probably.
Okay. So
settle that debate
before we get too deep into this. There's a lot of things going around about Asian people are being very persecuted against. So I just want to get this off my chest at the beginning. I don't hate Asian people, okay?
Oh, goodness. See, I'm not on social media at the moment. I did not even know that. Is that actually real?
Oh, yeah, no. There was a shooting a couple days. This is getting so heavy right at the beginning of the podcast.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I was really hoping you wouldn't bring this up. Yeah, there was a shooting in Atlanta where eight Asian women were shot by some garbage white guy. He was going to kill all Asian people. So yeah, that's, I want to start things off by saying I do not condone Asian hate. Okay. So when Joe says that I don't like Japanese movies, that's not where we're going with this. I just want to get that out there. And we're not laughing because it's funny. We're laughing because we're uncomfortable.
It's terribly ironic, and I apologize. I did not know that happened. I had not even heard about it.
No, but you're super into Japanese culture.
I love it. It's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Very good. So what kind of movies? Oh my! What kind of movies have you been watching?
I've been watching a lot of Ghibli movies. It's from the only way I can describe it is I guess like the Pixar of
Japan.
Yeah, they're like a production, like DreamWorks, Pixar, like they make movies. And so this is production Ghibli is they make all these movies, and I've just been watching a lot of them lately, and there's a lot more that I have to get through, and I'm just very, very excited to do so. So far, I've watched Spirited Away, best one of the greatest movies I've ever watched. Spirited Away, and then I watched Howl's Moving Castle last night. And then I also started Kiki's Delivery Service last night, and I finished it today at lunch break. Yeah. And I also watched them in Japanese.
Yeah, of course
with English subtitles.
Very good. I was just going to let you have the floor there for a little bit. I really feel like you're very passionate about this. And
I am.
It's nice to see your eyes light up like that.
Oh.
I don't understand the whole thing, why you like it so much. But
there's and I cannot quite explain it either, but there is a certain aesthetic. There's a certain aesthetic that I just love about the Japanese.
You love to make a point of the fact
cartoons, the Japanese animation. Yeah. It's just, I love it.
And you love to make a point of the fact that you listen to them in Japanese
I
with
do.
the English subtitles.
I actually listened to them in the original Japanese audio, and then
so pretentious.
because I don't know if you know this, but when you listen to it, when you watch it in English and you have the subtitles on, they don't 100% line up.
Yeah,
like
obviously.
The English doesn't really match up to the what's it called? The translation. So when you watch it in Japanese, you can read English subtitles, and those English subtitles are more accurate to what they're actually.
Is it kind of in broken English then?
Or not really.
Like,
it's just
because I'm just
not really broken English. It's different.
Okay.
But it's good. I like it a lot. You get a lot more from it like that.
Okay. Yeah. It says.
And it's not. And to K, let me also get this off my chest. It's not like anime. It's not like they're like big eyes and they go, boo, boo, you know the stupid like anime that you see. I don't know. I'm not really into anime. I just love these.
You do like
these
anime
movies
though, too, right?
I did. I used to.
That's great.
Well, I haven't watched any like good animes. I just watched the mainstream ones that were never really good, in my opinion. Just popular, I guess.
So, what advice would you have to give to people that maybe want to get into Japanese cartoons? Maybe not anime, but Japanese cartoons.
Start with Spirited Away.
Spirited Away is on Netflix.
Just watch it in the Japanese with English subtitles. It is on Netflix. Yep. Watch Spirited Away, and then I have a lot to go through. I have my neighbor Totoro, I think it's called, Princess Monarchy or Monaco. I'm really butchering these names, but yeah, I'm just really excited.
I don't entirely know who this opening segment is for.
Probably know it's gonna be skip.
This might be one. No, Joe. Listen, you never know. Somebody might really fall in love with Japanese cartoons. I hope so. Been letting you have the floor on this, man. You're not quite ready to start your own Japanese cartoon podcast, so this is kind of the only outlet you have to kind of talk about it.
Yeah, I know, and it's good. Thank you for actually having me. Thank you for letting me talk about it and just getting it off my chest. I've just been meaning to talk to you about it.
No problem. I'm sorry, I don't know where else to take this.
You can do your football stuff now.
No, we can talk about other stuff as well.
Yeah, it's fine.
The Japanese thing, it's good.
Oh dear, don't patronize me.
No, I'm not trying to patronize you. I usually have a place that I can go. I usually can like transition into what we're going to talk about next, or even just a little bit more banter. But this just has me at a complete loss for words. I don't know where to go with this. I did not know that this is how we were going to start the podcast. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we go from here.
Take it away.
Just in the football thing, then we're just going on football then.
Why not?
Or what?
Yeah, you have nothing to add, I guess, to my. But no questions.
I don't want to make fun of you.
Yeah, no, you don't even have any questions.
I don't think
it or like any.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can ask you questions.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I did ask you. Okay. Are these like full length movies?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? That in Japan they just have like shorter or
time
longer
zones.
movies?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, the time zones are different. You're right.
Okay, so these are full length animated.
Yeah,
films. We're talking an hour and a
films.
half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
You watch them at lunch break.
Yeah.
Okay. Something I didn't want to talk about. Sorry, we're gonna move on from the Japanese.
That's
thing.
good. Yeah, let's just do it.
Something that I did want.
Just do whatever you want to talk about. And let's
something that I did want to talk about.
The show over.
Sorry, Joe. Last week you pointed out that.
Oh, I already know
that. There was something that drove you nuts. You were listening back. Obviously, you're editing the podcast. You're listening back to the recording, and you had something that drove you nuts. And I forgot to listen for it, so I never actually heard what you're talking about when I listened back to the podcast.
Okay.
And I'm starting to think that it's not what you think that it was.
It's exactly what I think it is.
Okay, what was it?
You scratching your beard.
Scratching my beard?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think it is?
So that annoyed. Well, I'm thinking that it's this. Me moving my hat.
It's not. It's this.
Because I don't even do that, though.
Yeah, but you do.
I don't.
And once we're done, I will show you, and we'll go back and we'll listen to it over.
But speaking of my beard, we never did a beard update. I said before our break that I'm gonna grow out my beard. and we never did an update. Joe, why don't you tell the people how the beard's looking?
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Basically, I want like an unbiased opinion because, like, obviously, I think it's great, but
you want an unbiased opinion from your best friend.
Yeah, from my best friend.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the sides here?
When you do that, you just put it right in front of the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's coming in.
Yeah.
Not nearly as much as your goatee.
Yeah, the goat's looking good.
Yeah.
The goat's getting long.
It's good. It looks good. I think it all looks great. A little scruffy, a little dirty, but
yeah, it's
fine.
getting quite gross a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We have maternity pictures coming up soon.
When?
I don't know. But yeah, maternity pictures coming up soon. I've been thinking about shaving my whole beard off, just going.
Whole thing? No.
Okay, yeah.
No.
My wife doesn't want me to do
Here's
it.
Here's the thing: you have not had no beard.
Yeah.
You've had a beard and mustache for a long time now. If you decide to shave it all off and you go for your pictures, you could regret it for a long time.
I for sure will.
I had long hair for my brother's wedding.
Yeah.
I look at those pictures every day and I look like a little schoolboy.
Like a little
I hate it. It's terrible. They're the worst pictures.
I don't think they're that bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, I probably shouldn't. But yeah, as far as
I had a middle part, Joe. I had a middle.
Yeah, I thought it looked good, man.
Part for my brother's wedding.
What's wrong with that?
It did not look good.
I think you can pull it off.
It was uneven.
I think you do a lot of things with your hair that you don't give yourself enough credit for.
Me personally, or just
just
humans
you. Yeah, no, you personally.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you have great hair.
Yeah, but I've actually been shaving because I got a brand new razor from my cousin.
For Christmas?
No, birthday.
For your birthday?
Yeah, I did. It's one of those ones that. Sorry, I hate to get into this, but you ever seen those razors that you can like open up from from the bottom? They open up. You put a razor in there.
Okay.
Close it back up. Alex got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. Okay. That's great.
And I've been using it, and I've actually been liking it.
Oh.
I always had a problem with my face breaking out like crazy every time I shave. So far, I have not had that. Not unless there are some spots, obviously.
No, you look good. You look
Thank
really
you.
good.
But I've been keeping the stash just.
No, I can see that from here, man.
Actually,
it looks great. It looks just a couple of boys that can't grow a whole lot of facial hair.
The worst.
Talking about facial hair.
The worst facial hair in the world.
Just,
I mean, yours is good, but I'm also 20, so I.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I had a birthday over the break.
Oh yeah, you had a birthday.
Big old 2-0.
Big old 2-0. You're finally in the 20s.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. That's how old you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not our first episode since the break, but I feel like we had such a long break since the last episode. So we had the huge break, like the month break.
Yeah.
And then we had an episode. And then and I apologize for this, free agency was happening this week. I didn't want to upload on Tuesday. That's when we usually upload because free agency started on pretty much Monday. Wednesday was the start of the league year. So I figured uploading on Tuesday was just going to be a complete mess because there's going to be so many things that I'm going to miss. And even now, there'll probably be a bunch of things that I'm going to miss. So I wanted to push it back. I put it on Instagram. I put it on social media so that you guys could see that we were going to push the upload date to later in the week. So this episode, by the time you're listening to it, it's probably the weekend. I think it might go up on Saturday. So this will go up on Saturday. We're not going to have an episode that Tuesday.
Okay.
But then we're going to go the Tuesday after that. We're going to have an episode, and we're going to we're going to get right back on track.
Very good.
So I apologize to you, Joe. I apologize to the listeners. I apologize to myself that this whole week was a little bit all over the place, but we're going to get right back to normal after we're talking about the free agency frenzy. And that was this week, right, Joe?
And it was.
So why don't we just...
Honestly, it was.
Yeah, why don't we just stop with the banter and just get right into the crazy week that we had in NFL free agency. So before we get into all the signings that happened, and there was a lot of them, I think over 100 and something signings happened just in the last few days. Joe, you wanted me to explain to you what the legal tampering period, what the beginning of the new league year, stuff like that is. So basically, up until this Wednesday, technically it was still last season in the NFL. And this can be for any of you who maybe aren't as well versed in the off season of the NFL as some people might be. Okay. This is the offseason. I do love the offseason. I do love free agency, the draft. It's really exciting. But basically, up until this Wednesday was the day when contracts expire. So if you had a contract up until 2021, this is when it would expire and you become a free agent. And basically, what they do, and this is so stupid. This is something that should change, and it's pointless. You're not allowed to talk to another team about a contract if you're under contract with your current team. That's called tampering. You're not allowed to talk to the Packers about, even if your contract is expiring, you're not allowed to talk about them or talk to them about getting a new contract until the legal tampering period in the NFL. So basically what the NFL did a few years ago was they added 2 days, and it's usually Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday is when the official start of free agency starts. 2 days called the legal tampering period, because they realized that when free agency started, all the deals were getting done right away, which meant that players, Joe, are you listening?
Yeah, I just have something in my eye right now, and it hurts so bad.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go take it out if that's all right.
Okay, I was literally explaining this to you, but
oh really?
Yeah. No.
Oh, I've been just sitting here with something in my eye. It hurts so bad. I gotta go get it out. It's an eyelash or something. Oh my goodness, it hurts so bad.
Okay, so Joe is trying to get something out of his eye, so I guess I'm just gonna be explaining this to whoever is listening to this at this point. The NFL added 2 days called the legal tampering period. So they realized that most contracts were being discussed before they were allowed to be discussed. Most contracts were being tampered with. So they added 2 days where there was legal tampering, which is kind of an oxymoron. I don't know how you can legally tamper when tampering is technically illegal in the NFL world. So now they added 2 days where you are allowed to, without punishment, talk to other teams that you're not under contract with about new contracts while currently under contract with the team that you're currently under contract with. So now what they've essentially done by adding these 2 legal tampering days is they've just pushed the illegal tampering to start sooner, because guess what? As soon as the legal tampering period starts, you start hearing of deals that are done. And that doesn't work. If nobody's talking about contracts until the legal tampering period starts, there should be no contracts that are immediately done as soon as the legal tampering period opens. So that means there's still illegal tampering going on, but it's just happening earlier before the legal tampering period. So all of this is essentially pointless. The NFL needs to just do away with the whole legal tampering crap and understand that fans don't care about tampering whatsoever, especially when it comes to free agent contracts. The second the Super Bowl is over, I don't care who players are talking to. If you want to talk about signing a new contract, the second that the Super Bowl is over and your contract is expired, do it. The average fan does not care whatsoever. So tampering is not a thing that most NFL fans, even passionate NFL fans, think about or care about. So the NFL needs to just eliminate this whole legal tampering period. They need to just get rid of that and just start free agency back on one day, just like it used to be. And as soon as free agency starts, a bunch of deals will be done because they will have been tampered with. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that these deals are tampered with. It just doesn't make any sense to have these legal tampering days. But they did do this again this year. And what do you know? The second that legal tampering opens, we get news of a bunch of contracts. It came fast and it came furious as far as contract signings. We're going to get into some of the big stories, some of the big headlines from NFL free agency, things that I thought were interesting, things that I thought were noteworthy, teams that maybe won free agency. And there's always, every year, there's one team that goes out and goes nuts in free agency And this year, it's not a team that we really expected it to be. That's right. It was the New England Patriots, a team that every podcast, every article, anything NFL free agency related was talking about. Oh, the Patriots, they're not going to spend. They have the most cap space going into this free agency period. They're not going to spend money. They never spend money. They just wait a couple days, wait a couple weeks. They sign the cheaper guys. They pick up the scraps. So they have all this money, but they're not going to spend it on these big name guys. And Bill Belichick essentially said, you guys have no idea what I'm doing ever. And you'll never know. Because the second that the legal tampering period opened this Monday at noon, I believe it was, the Patriots went cocoa nuts. They went buck wild in signing free agents. So it started off with Jonnu Smith, who signed a 4-year, $50 million contract. That he was the number one tight end in free agency by most accounts. Most people thought that he was the number one tight end. It just made sense. Patriots love tight ends. Patriots, the tight end is always a huge part of their offense. And ever since Gronk left, they haven't had that part of their offense. They were the worst team as far as tight ends go in the NFL last year. And that's a complete change to where they used to be. So they go and they get Jonnu Smith. And then they make a couple other signings. They signed a guy like Devon Gotcha. They also signed Jalen Mills from the Eagles, just smaller signings. But then they also go and sign Matt Judon, who was one of, if not the best pass rusher in free agency, to a 4-year, $54 million contract, $32 million guaranteed. They also signed Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, 2 wide receivers. Everybody was talking about how terrible the surrounding talent around Cam Newton was last year, and it was terrible. I mean, their number one receivers essentially in snaps last year was Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd, who is not technically a household name. Definitely not a household name unless you live in a very angry household in Boston, Massachusetts. So the Patriots were not messing around. These signings that I just explained to you, those were the signings that just went down on the very first day of the legal tampering period for the New England Patriots. This is not even all the signings that they had. So they went and they got Jonnu Smith, Matthew Judon, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Mills, Henry Anderson, I believe, was on that first day too. Devon Gotcha was on that first day. And then before that, they had already traded for Trent Brown, the tackle from the Las Vegas Raiders, who originally played in New England before going to Las Vegas. He comes back. So they're just loading up like crazy there on the first day of free agency. They spend a ton of money. And then the second day hits and you're thinking, okay, how much more can the Patriots really do? And first thing in the morning, the first big signing of the day is Hunter Henry, probably the second best tight end in free agency. He signs a 3-year, $37.5 million contract with the New England Patriots. So now the Patriots, everybody's saying they go out and they get their 2 tight ends. This is Gronk and Aaron Hernandez-esque. Back when they had those 2 guys, and they were a dominant offense in that fashion, where they had these 2 elite level tight ends, and that kind of seems to where they want to go back to with these 2 signings. The 2 tight end sets running a lot of that. They went from being a team that ran 2 tight end sets the most in the NFL to last year, I think they ran it the least out of everybody in the NFL, just because they didn't have the talent there. So it is so crazy to not only at the tight end position, but just in general, to see the Patriots go so counterintuitive to what we've seen them do every single year in free agency. And that probably has something to do with the fact that they no longer have Tom Brady. I think it's very easy to not sign people in free agency when you have the greatest quarterback and greatest coach of all time on your team. And you're like, okay, it doesn't really matter because we'll figure it out. Well, this year that didn't work. And you can say that it was because of lack of talent on the roster. It was because Cam Newton, who, by the way, re-signed on a 1-year deal to return to New England. You can say it was because of him. You can say any of these things. Maybe it was because of COVID opt-outs, but they finished 7-9. The first losing record that the Patriots have had in decades. They haven't had a losing record in a very long time. And they completely switch it up, and we don't see New England do this. We've seen them make a couple of big signings. Darrelle Revis was a signing that they made at one point. Stephon Gilmore a few years back. Guys like that. The Patriots almost never go out and sign big fish like this. But this year, I think you can feel a desperation by Bill Belichick here. And people want to say that Bill Belichick. He's not doing this because of Tom Brady. He's not doing this because Tom Brady won in Tampa Bay. Oh, no, that's ridiculous. Bill Belichick doesn't care. And I think, why not? Bill Belichick is a human being. We know that Bill Belichick is insanely competitive, loves to win. Why on earth would he not see Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl for another team, making him look bad and say, you know what, I'm not going to stand for this? And why would he not take that personally? Why would he not go out and try to do everything he can to get his team back on track, whatever it takes? I think that absolutely has something to do with this. The fact that Tom Brady went and immediately won a Super Bowl with a different team kind of made him look bad. People thought, okay, maybe it was Tom Brady, the reason that the Patriots were good for so long. Maybe it wasn't Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick's trying to completely flip that narrative. And I think they've done a good job. Honestly, a lot of the times the team that wins in free agency, the overwhelming winner of free agency, you'll often see they just do not succeed when it comes to playing football. When it comes to actually playing football, it almost never translates. Whether it was the Philadelphia Eagles back with their dream team, or it's the Miami Dolphins almost every freaking year, signing the big name free agents doesn't usually lead to success on the field because it's very hard to build a team that way. And in the Patriots, they're a team that has not drafted well over the past few years, or not even past few years, over basically Bill Belichick's entire tenure. He's not a very good drafter. He's not an incredible GM. He no longer has that buffer of Tom Brady to cover up some of the mistakes. I mean, I just remember Tom Brady on that team, the final year in New England, how everybody thought he was completely washed. He had nothing left in the tank, playing with very similar targets that Cam Newton had last year, and he led them to a 12-4 record. Whereas Cam Newton leads them to a 7-9 record. I think that shows just how much Tom Brady was covering up a ton of holes on this roster. And I think Bill Belichick realizes that. Bill Belichick realized our team is not very good. Even with the guys that are coming back from the COVID-19 opt-outs, this team has a ton of holes, and he went out and filled them. I really like a lot of the things that the New England Patriots did this year. The Jonnu Smith signing, I thought that was, when I saw that notification hit on my phone, I laughed because I thought that was, of course, that's such a perfect fit for New England. He fits what they want to do. We know Bill Belichick loves Jonnu Smith. He can do so many things at the tight end position. And then Matthew Judon and like Jalen Mills, Devon Gotcha. These are guys, Matt Judon aside, that aren't maybe these dominant elite defensive players. And if it was any other team like a Jacksonville or a New York Jets signing these guys on defense, you would say, okay, maybe they overpaid, or what are they doing? Why are they doing it? But with the Patriots, you just assume that, and I think for good reason, that Bill Belichick is going to get the best out of these guys. Like a guy like Jalen Mills, I just feel like he's going to improve drastically in New England. A guy like Matthew Judon, I think Bill Belichick's going to get the best out of him. And I really like these sign. There's not a signing really that I look at in the New England Patriots free agency splash that I don't like. There's not a signing that I look at and I go, ooh, I don't know about that. I really, really like what they did. They went crazy. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe Bill Belichick's track record as a GM stays the way that it's been a lot of the times, and he doesn't find guys that can contribute. But I really like the aggressive attitude of New England and of Bill Belichick this offseason. It definitely creates an intriguing storyline going into the 2021-2022 NFL season. And they've definitely, without a doubt, improved their offense tremendously and their defense tremendously, this roster in general, but especially that offense that had essentially no weapons last year. Cam Newton had no one to throw to, and now he's got a guy like Nelson Aguilar, who was kind of left for dead there in Philadelphia. Had a fantastic year last year with Las Vegas. I really liked what he brought to that Raiders team last year. I think that's kind of a little bit of a riskier move. He's not one of the safer receivers in free agency, but they only gave him a 2-year deal worth $22 million. That's not overly crazy. That's not something that's gonna kill you. And then Kendrick Bourne, another not a star, but already other than Nelson Aguilar, probably the best receiver on your team, other than Julian Edelman, and just immediate upgrades. And I think this team is going to be a lot better. And I think this division is going to be a lot better. We'll get into some of the other signings that happened within this division and within the NFL, but the Patriots went absolutely crazy. We also had both of the Super Bowl teams making some splashes in free agency in very, very different ways. We'll start off with the Super Bowl champions, the defending Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they went all out in running it back. That was, you could tell from the get-go here in free agency, that was the goal of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to bring back their guys, bring back all their free agents, and try for another one. You might as well. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers proved they were the best team in football last year. They have a potential to be the best team in football this upcoming year. So why not bring back essentially all the guys that you had for last year? And we saw Bruce Arians and we saw Jason Light in the parade. Maybe they had a little bit too much to drink, but they were saying they want to bring everybody back. And that you can tell from the beginning, that was a goal that they had in free agency. They started off by tagging Chris Godwin. A little bit of a surprise there. People weren't totally sure if he would be tagged or if it would be Shaq Barrett being tagged. But Chris Godwin gets the franchise tag, so he'll stay there. He's already signed his franchise tag. And then they re-signed Levante David, the veteran linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, to a 2-year, $25 million deal. They gave Tom Brady an extension, so he is now under contract until his age 45 year. There's a chance that he's playing football at 4. I think a very good chance that he's playing football at 45. And then as the second that the legal tampering period starts, we get news that Shaq Barrett signs a 4-year, $68 million contract to stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a find he was for Jason Light and for Bruce Arians there for Tampa Bay. He was a guy who wasn't bad in Denver playing across from Von Miller, but he never really developed into what people thought he potentially could be. He goes to Tampa Bay, immediately has a 20-plus sack season, just goes nuts and plays fairly well. There, maybe not as well as last year, but then when it came to the postseason, it came to the Super Bowl, we saw him and Jason Pierre-Paul go absolutely bonkers. So he earned this contract. Good for Shaq Barrett. And he only gets $17 million a year, which is actually not that bad. I think the higher pass rushers in the league, guys like Joey Bosa, are making upwards of $23 million a year, in the 20s. So we only get $17 million a year, which, is fine. I would be okay with $17 million a year. But Shaq Barrett kind of takes a little bit of a discount, but I think it's something that we kind of noticed throughout this free agency, as because the cap was so much lower than it usually is. We usually see the cap, salary cap, go up every single year because of how immensely successful the NFL has been. But because of COVID, because of no fans in the stands, the NFL doesn't have the same amount of money. So the cap went down. So you'll see a lot of guys taking smaller deals. But Shaq Barrett's deal, still very impressive nonetheless. And then Rob Gronkowski also re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a 1-year, $8 million deal. We heard that potentially he might dip his toes in free agency, and it kind of seemed like he would maybe see what kind of offers he has. It didn't seem like he looked that hard because he very quickly signed back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ryan Suckup also, their kicker, who was a free agent. Listen, kicker, big part of the team, right, Joe? I'm curious to see where he ranks in your top 5 kickers going into this NFL season. Who? Ryan Suckup.
Oh.
Ryan Suckup. I think he hit 37 of 40 field goals this last season. So
yeah, I put him at number 3.
Oh, you don't have to release it yet.
Oh,
I'll give you time.
Okay.
Okay. Just keep that in your mind, though. Ryan Suckup, all right?
Ryan Suckup.
Super Bowl winning kicker. But yeah, the Buccaneers made a concerted effort to bring back everybody, and there's still a few guys out there. Antonio Brown's still out there. Who knows what really happens with it. Ndamukong Suh still has not been signed. So they could potentially still bring those guys back. I don't know if Antonio Brown is going to want to play for anybody but Tom Brady. But Bruce Arians and Jason Light did what they said they were going to do. They brought guys back. They're running it back. And I love this. Why not? I think we see a lot of times teams win the Super Bowl, and a lot of their big name free agents, they sign elsewhere. They go and get the money. And I think Shaq Barrett, honestly, probably despite what he says, that he got his best offer from the Bucs, I'm sure he could have got better money elsewhere. But this team seems committed to try to run it back. And I love that. Why not just see if you can do it again? If lightning strikes twice. And then we had the other Super Bowl team. The Super Bowl losers took a completely different approach to free agency, and one that I was a little confused. I think everybody was a little confused about. Is before free agency even hit, they released. So the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that my mother could have told me the biggest problem with them in the Super Bowl. Joe, what was the biggest problem with the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
Probably their oh man, their offensive line.
Offensive line, exactly.
Yeah.
They had no offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes had to run for his life in that game. They were missing their two starting tackles. Both of them were injured. So what do? What should they probably do in free agency?
I'd say they should probably just get like a good offensive line.
Yeah, a good offensive line, bolster the offensive line. How about those two guys that were pretty good? Two guys, Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher. They were injured for that game. Let's just get rid of them. They got rid of them. They cut both of them. They're starting tackles, both starting tackles. Mitchell Schwartz, who's an All-Pro, like one of the best right tackles in the league. And then Eric Fisher, who, he's not elite, but he's a very satisfactory starting tackle. Like, nothing wrong with that. Both of them gone, released. And you're like, what in the heck are the Kansas City Chiefs doing? They're the biggest weakness, one of the few weaknesses of this offense is the fact that now going against a real pass rush, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to run for his life. So they get rid of the two guys that they need probably the most. And I just had a feeling, amidst all the chaos and everything, I just felt like there's no chance Kansas City does this without having a plan. They definitely have some idea of who they're going to get in free agency. They have some idea of who they're going to get maybe in the draft. And we definitely saw that. They signed guard Joe Thuney, formerly of the Patriots, to a 5-year, $80 million contract. 31 guaranteed, $16 million per year. So they go and get the biggest name guard on the market. And then they bring Kyle Long out of retirement. He was an all-pro guard back in his heyday. They bring him in. They make a couple signings there. So I knew that they were going to have a plan, and they came out, signed a couple guards. Now you could make the argument you still have two openings at tackle, and also you lost your center. So I think there's still a lot of work to do there in Kansas City. But definitely, you can't be mad at the Joe Thuney signing. He's a guy who doesn't miss a whole lot of games. They had injury issues on their offensive line last year. Joe Thuney doesn't miss games. And Kyle Long, if you can get any bit of what he was when he was in his prime, who knows if that will ever happen. But if you can get any bit of that, that's already an upgrade over most of the guys on your offensive line. But I had a feeling they had a plan. I still think there's a lot of work to do on the offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's crazy to see that the very different approaches from the two Super Bowl teams. You had the winning team saying, we're going to do this again. We're going to run it back. We're going to bring everybody back. And Kansas City kind of did that last year as well with bringing back Chris Jones, signing Patrick Mahomes to that huge contract, and all that stuff. But then this year we see Kansas City just saying, okay, we're going to start fresh on the offensive line. They absolutely did that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for both these teams. Now, in this year's free agency, we had all of the big name teams, the teams we just talked about, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, New England, all the guys that made the huge splashes. But there was so many other great signings in this free agency period. And I want to get into a couple of under the radar teams that I thought did a really, really good job. Maybe some of them not even that quietly. I think some of these teams are actually getting more attention than originally they did. Maybe they're not under the radar anymore. But the first team I want to get into, and this is a team that I think is getting a lot more love lately from a lot of the media, and this is the Washington football team. I thought they had a phenomenal free agency. I really like what Ron Rivera and that front office there in Washington did in free agency. So originally the first move that they made before free agency, they tag Brandon Scherf, one of, if not the best guard in the NFL. They bring him back. You can't let an offensive lineman that good go unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs. And then free agency starts. They're kind of quiet, but they at the beginning, but they end up signing on the night of the first night of the legal tampering period. It comes out that they're signing Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's right, Fitzmagic is back. There was rumors that he would retire, but no, he decides to sign a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Washington football team. And then they go on to sign William Jackson, who is probably one of, if not the best, defensive back in free agency. And you add him to that really, really good defense. I mean, an underrated, talented, young defense there in Washington. And then probably one of, if not my favorite signings in free agency, Curtis Samuel, the wide receiver, the multi-faceted weapon, the Swiss Army knife that is Curtis Samuel. You can play him in the backfield. You can play him at wide receiver. You can just play him all over the field. He makes plays. Had a huge breakout year in Carolina. He goes back to his original coach there in Carolina, Ron Rivera, in Washington, signs a 3-year, $34.5 million deal. And I love what Washington did in free agency to go out and just, I think, add to their strengths. Especially on defense, they have a really, really good defense. I liked what they did last year. And you add William Jackson, who was an underrated defensive back, and not a guy who gets talked about a whole lot, but I think he's going to do well there in Washington. And you add Ryan Fitzpatrick to this team. They got rid of Alex Smith. He's no longer on that roster. So you go and get Fitzmagic. And, some might argue Ryan Fitzpatrick is maybe more of a meme at this point than a real good quarterback. I would definitely push back against that. Ryan Fitzpatrick has played really well the last few years, and he always has spurts where he plays well. And he's got very much that no risk it, no biscuit mentality. He's not afraid to go out there and chuck the ball up. And now he's got Terry McLaurin to throw to. He's got Curtis Samuel to throw to. This is an underrated offense. Honestly, they have Antonio Gibson, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to have a great year. And I really like the fact that Washington, they don't have a quarterback at this point. They brought back Taylor Heinecke. Kyle Allen's back there now. But they're not in position to go draft a big name guy. They made the playoffs. So, they don't have the draft capital to go and get one of these top 5 quarterback prospects. So they just go out and they're like, okay, if we can't rebuild that way, we have a pretty good roster. Why not go and get Ryan Fitzpatrick, put him on this team? And I think, to me, this team is the favorite right now in that division, in the weakest division of football, the NFC East. You can talk about the Cowboys, and I will talk about the Cowboys at some point during this podcast, during this offseason. I do love the Cowboys, like I always do. But Washington, to me, I think I appreciate the aggressiveness. They just said, we overall, our roster is good. We have enough to compete. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the long-term answer, but I think he can absolutely lead this team to a playoff berth this year, and they could be a really frisky, fun team this upcoming year. I'm so excited for a lot of these offensive weapons. Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, a bunch of fantasy guys. I think they're going to have a great season with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then defensively, you still have Chase Young, all those guys there on that defensive line. And then you added William Jackson. So a good under the radar, maybe not so much under the radar, off season or free agency period for the Washington football team. And another team that I want to give a little credit to, and it's the Arizona Cardinals. I think a lot of people kind of were confused with a lot of the signings that Arizona had, and they went out and they signed a few old guys. So they signed J.J. Watt. Obviously, we talked about that on last week's episode. They signed him to a 2-year, $31 million deal. I still really like that. Him and Chandler Jones across from each other. I think that's going to be a really, really fun watch. I think that'll be something fun to keep an eye on. But then you go, and you're not done in free agency. And I love another team, aggressive. I think they see that. Listen, they were right on the doorstep of the playoffs before kind of falling apart there at the end of last season. They go and they're aggressive. They bring back Marcus Golden, who seems to only play really well in Arizona. So there's another pass rusher, and then they bring in AJ Green, who's a guy I completely forgot about that AJ Green was even a free agent. And I understand he hasn't been AJ Green. He hasn't been that guy in many years, probably since 2017. I think 2017 was his last 1,000-yard season. So AJ Green hasn't been that guy in a while, but you're not bringing him in to be the number one guy. DeAndre Hopkins obviously is the number one guy. You have Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella. So AJ Green is probably going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of single coverage. He's not going to get double covered. I think we could see a bounce back year. I'm not saying 1,000 yards from AJ Green, but I definitely think it's cool to bring him in, have him maybe mentor even DeAndre Hopkins. Not that guy really even needs mentoring. I mean, he's got it pretty well figured out at this point. But you also give just a reliable target, a guy who knows how to play for Kyler Murray. So you bring that guy in. And then speaking of helping Kyler Murray, they trade for Rodney Hudson, the center from the Las Vegas Raiders. They get Rodney Hudson and a 7th-round pick for a 2021 third. I love this trade. Anything you can do, again, to help Kyler Murray, to help this offense that was really good at times last year, but just too inconsistent. You bring in a guy who can help set protections, who can help dissect a defense. They're with a young quarterback in Kyler Murray. And Rodney Hudson is probably the best center in the NFL. So if you have an opportunity for a 3rd-round pick, you get Rodney Hudson, who's really not making that much money right now. So it's a fantastic deal in my opinion. So I love what Arizona did. Sure, they might have signed some old guys, J.J. Watt. Who knows how much we'll get out of him? AJ Green, who knows how much we'll get out of him? But I think if they go and maybe get a running back in the draft, I think this could be an offense that is going to be really fun again. Maybe they can find a little bit more consistency, and who knows? Competing that division is going to be really tough. But I like what the Arizona Cardinals did, being aggressive, saying, hey, we have a quarterback on a rookie contract. We're going to do everything we can to succeed right now under Kyler Murray before we have to pay him the big contract. Love that. And then the final team, just real quick, this team didn't do a whole lot in free agency, but the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that surprised everybody last year. They were in the AFC Championship, and just a phenomenal offense. Josh Allen broke out, and what do? They kind of have the same mentality that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had, and there's we're just going to run it back. We're going to bring a bunch of guys back. They bring back John Feliciano, the offensive lineman. They bring back Darrell Williams, another offensive lineman. They bring back Matt Milano, who's one of the better cover linebackers in the NFL. And then a signing that I really, really liked by the Buffalo Bills was bringing in Emmanuel Sanders. He didn't play all that well last year in New Orleans. They released him, but the Bills released John Brown after an injury-riddled 2020. So they bring in Emmanuel Sanders to kind of take that role, and I love this. Just seeing what Buffalo did with Cole Beasley last year, a guy who I wasn't very high on that signing last year, completely proved me wrong. I love bringing in another talented veteran
receiver for Josh Allen, a guy who, like Stephon Diggs, is just going to know how to get open when Josh Allen's back there doing his thing, scrambling. So that's a signing. I like the fact that they bring back their core group of guys, and they say, hey, our team's pretty good. The AFC has a lot of good teams, so why not just stay as strong as possible? And then bring in a veteran receiver who can help Josh Allen, who can kind of, maybe he can have that jump that a guy like Cole Beasley had last year. And then real quick, before we just wrap things up and just go over all the rest of the signings, there's just a whole lot of notable signings that happened. I don't have time to get into everything. I would love to get into everything. But like I said, just don't have the time for it. I want to quickly do a new segment that I'm starting, and it's called What Are You Doing? And I have a few teams here in free agency that, we've talked a lot of sunshine and rainbows about a lot of different teams and stuff that they did. So, in the good, there's always got to be the bad. There's always got to be teams that make you shake your head and say, what are you doing? What is your plan? And there's a few teams that really come to mind. The first team, and this I don't know, with the recent news that came out around Deshaun Watson, there's for those of you that know, Deshaun Watson has sexual assault allegations right now pending. He's got a bunch of I think 9 sexual assault allegations right now that are submitted, so that's something that we're going to track, and that's probably going to change this whole Deshaun Watson situation. But I did want to get into the Houston Texans because they're a team that just is driving me nuts, and this is we're going to put that part of the Deshaun Watson thing aside. Not that we shouldn't talk about something like that, but we don't know exactly what's going on there. I just want to get into the Houston Texans and what their offseason, what the last few seasons in Houston has consisted of. And so this free agency, Houston goes out, they sign a bunch of middling guys. They nothing very impressive at all. A bunch of special teams guys, a bunch of guys that certainly are not going to jump off the screen. Guys like Camus Grugier-Hill. They traded for Shaq Lawson. They bring in Vernon Hargraves. They bring him back. They sign Justin Britt. They trade for Marcus Cannon. Like, none of these guys, they bring in Mark Ingram, Andre Roberts. None of these guys jump off the screen. None of these guys are going to make Deshaun Watson go, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't leave Houston. And to me, Houston, why is Deshaun Watson still on this roster? And again, we're going to put the legal aspect of it aside right now. Why do they insist on acting as though this Deshaun Watson situation is not happening? We saw David Culley saying in an interview on a podcast, the Hustle and Flow podcast, that he said something along the lines of, Deshaun Watson is our quarterback right now. And it sounded a little bit suspicious. And then later he had a press conference where he kind of backtracked those words. And he said, yes, Deshaun Watson's here. He's committed. But we know he's not committed. We know he's not committed. Why don't you give up? Why don't you just move on? Get rid of Deshaun Watson. He doesn't want to be there. What is the point of signing all these middling contracts? You bring in Tyrod Taylor now. See, he signs a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. That could be worth up to $12.5 million. Originally, when that deal got reported, it was a $12.5 million deal. I was like, wow, that's a lot for a backup quarterback. So I thought maybe they're going to trade this guy. Maybe they're going to trade Deshaun Watson. But the more you read into it, the more it's not that big of a deal. But why does Houston insist on acting like they have no clue that Deshaun Watson doesn't want out? They have no clue Deshaun Watson has made it very clear that he will never play another snap for Houston. To me, Houston, you just got to move on, man. This is like having, this is like chasing after a girl that just showed that she's absolutely not interested in you anymore. She's told you, she's told her friends, she's put it on social media, and you're still chasing her. You just got to move on, man. It's over. Just get over it. Houston, you got to get over it. And another team that has frustrated me in this free agency period, and it's the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't understand what they're doing. There's a lot of rumors that maybe they're cash poor because moving to Las Vegas, and then they didn't have fans in the stands. Maybe they don't have the money to. There's a difference between cap space and actual cash. Some teams have cap space. They have the ability to go and sign guys under the cap, but they don't actually have the money to sign these guys. So a lot of people are saying that Las Vegas didn't have the money, and that's why we're seeing them get rid of basically their entire offensive line. They gave up 3 starting O-linemen, and the Raiders have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. That's really the strength of their team. That's why Derek Carr played as well as he did last year, is their offensive line. And they just got rid of him. Trent Brown, gone. Rodney Hudson, the best center in the NFL, gone. Gabe Jackson, gone. He's gone to Seattle. I don't understand what the deal is here with the Raiders, what the plan is, what you're trying to do. It seems like you're just getting rid of the strength of your team. I don't know how this is going to help Derek Carr. I don't know what the direction is. I don't know. And they made a bunch of signings that weren't actually that bad. I didn't mind a lot of the signings made by Las Vegas, but it's just all kind of overshadowed by the fact that they completely gave up on 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen that were starting for them last year. And that doesn't smell like a recipe for success there in Las Vegas. And then one final team that has frustrated me, and this kind of got a little cleared up today. They signed Will Fuller, the wide receiver from Houston. And there's rumors that they're about to sign Chris Carson. Not as big a fan of that. But my Miami Dolphins, up until this point, them signing Will Fuller, have done absolutely nothing in free agency. They cleared up a bunch of cap space by getting rid of Kyle Van Noy, who was their captain last year. I never understood that release. We didn't talk about that much on the podcast. But the release of Kyle Van Noy, cutting your captain, a guy who's, he's not an all-pro. He didn't play amazing last year, but he played fine. You cut him. You clear out this cap space. So fans are thinking, okay, Miami's going to go out. They're going to spend money. This is going to be awesome. And then they did absolutely nothing. What was the point of getting rid of Kyle Van Noy if you're going to go in, you're going to sign a bunch of backup players, a bunch of special teams guys, a fullback, a backup quarterback, and there's all these amazing receivers. So, okay, amazing maybe is a little bit of a stretch, but there's these starting caliber receivers when you had nothing at the wide receiver position, and you did nothing. You let rid of Kyle Van Noy, who went back to New England now, and he's mad. He's motivated. He wants to do everything he can to destroy the Miami Dolphins. And guess what? The New England Patriots, they get a compensatory draft pick for letting Kyle Van Noy go to another team in free agency last year. So now they get that 3rd or 4th round pick, whatever it is. And now guess what? They have Kyle Van Noy now too. So they get the compensatory pick. Now they also have Kyle Van Noy. And every team in this division got better except for you. Honestly. And in a lot of this anger is pre them signing Will Fuller. I love that signing. I think that's a good signing. But to me, Miami's, they went from being, they could potentially challenge Buffalo. I thought they were going to have a really good free agency period, make some bigger signings. I think they went from a team that could potentially challenge Buffalo for the AFC East to probably the 3rd, maybe 4th best team in the AFC East at this point. And it's very premature, but to me, I was just so frustrated with the lack of movement. And maybe this will change. Maybe by the time you hear this podcast, we're recording this on a Thursday night. Maybe by the time you hear this, Miami will have done something. I thought at some point, maybe they're going to trade for Deshaun Watson. Something just didn't add up to me because they just made so little effort to actually improve their team. Maybe something else happens, but I was very frustrated by them. And that wraps up my little segment called "What Are You Doing?" And that's just a little bit of negativity to end off that free agency period. And then before we wrap things up, Joe, I don't know if you're ready to hit that music. I'm gonna assume that you're gonna put it here in post. We're gonna quickly go through all the other notable signings. That's right. I don't have time to talk about all of them. We're gonna do a little quick hits. We're gonna go through every other notable thing that I think happened. Maybe give you a little bit, and we just talk about all the other signings that happened. So first up, we have some quarterbacks with some signings. We have Drew Brees Not a signing. He officially announces his retirement. And so the Saints end up signing Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal worth $5.5 million. And they also signed Taysom Hill to a 4-year, $140 million contract. But literally 3 of those 4 years are all completely voidable. So that's a totally useless contract. So essentially you have 2 quarterbacks on a 1-year deal. I don't totally understand exactly what's going on there in New Orleans. Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill going to compete for that job. We'll see how that goes. We had the Dolphins signing Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback. Andy Dalton signs with the Chicago Bears, and I feel so bad for Chicago Bears fans because it seemed like they were going to sign Russell. They were maybe going to trade for Russell Wilson. There was Deshaun Watson rumors. It seemed like an exciting time for the Bears, and they end up with Andy Dalton. And no offense to Andy Dalton, fantastic person and a good enough quarterback, but that's tough to sell to your fans. And then we had the Jets making some signings. They signed Corey Davis to a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. Carl Lawson, the edge rusher from Cincinnati, to a 3-year, $45 million deal. And Jared Davis to a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. Some good signings, some decent signings. They're not going to blow you away, but you can see that they're trying to improve. And I think every team in the AFC East has improved, aside from maybe my Dolphins. And then Trent Williams becomes the highest paid tackle in the NFL. 6-year, $138 million contract, $23 million per year. He's probably one of, if not the best tackle in the NFL, so he deserves all of that. Corey Linsley also becomes the highest paid center in the NFL. He signs a 5-year, $62.5 million deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers get their young rookie or second-year quarterback, Justin Herbert, a little bit more help there at center. And then a couple of pass rushers that are off the board. Bud Dupree signs a 5-year, $82.5 million deal, despite that season-ending injury that he had last year. Was a little surprised to see that, but I love Bud Dupree. I also love Tennessee signing Danico Autry from the division rival Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that lacked pass rush last year, so what do? They go and get a couple of stud pass rushers. I really like that. And then Trey Hendrickson, formerly of the New Orleans Saints, signs a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Bengals. That was essentially the deal that Carl Lawson took with the Jets. He didn't take it with the Bengals, so the Bengals go out and they sign Trey Hendrickson to replace Carl Lawson. And then the Jags, they signed a ton of dudes. I won't get into this, but a bunch of more middling guys. But they give Shaquille Griffin as kind of the big headliner. He gets a 3-year, $40 million deal. Edge rusher Romeo Okwara re-signs in Detroit. 3 years, $39 million. Kevin Zeitler signs with the Baltimore Ravens. Helps out that offensive line. I think he fits in really well there with what they're trying to do. Patrick Peterson actually signs a 1-year, $10 million deal to no longer play in Arizona. He's playing with the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll see what Patrick Peterson has left in the tank. Not a guy that's young anymore. He's not what he used to be, but definitely an intriguing signing there for Minnesota. And then just today, like we talked about, Will Fuller signing a contract with the Miami Dolphins. We also have Kenyon Drake signing a 2-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. Brashad Perryman going to Detroit. And then to wrap things up, in the way only this podcast knows how, our boy, that's right, our boy, your boy, all of our boys. Tell him who, Joe.
Is it Mitch Trubisky?
It's our boy, Mitcher. Mitch Trubisky signs a 2-year... Hang on, let me find the information. Sorry, a 1-year, $2.5 million contract with the Average Joe Football Show to become our third. No, I wish. Sorry, Mitch. Mitcher. He signs with the Buffalo Bills, which is the next best thing. That's fine. AFC Championship game, whatever. He's going to be their backup. Congratulations to our boy Mitcher. You needed to get out of that toxic situation in Chicago.
It's kind of like a bad relationship. Yeah. You don't know your full potential until you're out of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You're going to go there. You're going to You got a new girl. You're hanging out with Josh Allen now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be you're gonna just focus on yourself, man.
Yeah.
Get out of that toxic relationship. Our boy Mitcher, really the headliner of free agency, signing a deal there with Buffalo. Oh, but that wraps up free agency so far, anyways. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more stuff to talk about as far as free agency goes on the next podcast. But that was a marathon, and free agency was a marathon. A lot of exciting times ahead as far as the rest of free agency goes. The draft coming up, in the off season. This is really the last thing, Joe, that is new to this podcast, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So we're almost a year into this podcast now. So everything that we're doing for the first time. So all the games with first time we had a Super Bowl show. This is the first free agency podcast. However, we've already had a draft podcast.
Oh my goodness.
So this is really the last thing that we haven't done before.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really coming full circle.
Wow.
As soon as we hit the draft, it's just deja vu all over again. We're just starting right back from the beginning. And for those of you that have been around long enough to remember that first podcast, thank you for sticking around, because that one was not very good. And who knows, maybe these ones aren't very good, but we appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. And make sure you guys give us a good rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a review. Again, if you give us a nice review, a 5-star rating, we'll read whatever you put in the little review thing. We'll read it on the podcast. We got to get more reviews, guys. Make sure you share the podcast with your friends, anybody that likes football. Heck, even if they don't like football, share it with them anyways. They can just download it, man. They don't even have to listen to it. We're just trying to get this podcast spread around. We have other future things happening, non-football related, potential new podcasts coming within the next few, who knows how long, Joe? No?
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, stay tuned for that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Follow us on social media at _the_average Joe show, or at _average Joe show on Instagram, _Joe Fair on Twitter. And Joe, what's your Twitter handle?
I don't have Twitter anymore.
Okay. So Joe is a ghost. He doesn't actually have social media, which is super cool of him. But thank you guys for listening. And once again, we're going to be back to normal next Tuesday. Everything's going to be back to normal Tuesday episodes. And we will catch you guys on the next one.